Coming out of high school, I went straight into college. My interests back then, still my interest now, but was how the brain worked. How does creativity come into play? When I was in high school, when I was probably it started when I was 14, but I didn't get good until I was 16, 17. But I was into computers and really the hacking scene, rats and host booters, IP flooding, DDoS, that type of thing. And the older I got, about a year from when I started into knowing that stuff even existed, I started programming .NET, so nothing fancy. And a homegrown programmer, just learned myself, made web browsers and picture opening programs, and but it got more and more, and I started making keyloggers to steal what people were typing, which I thought was crazy. When I first learned about a keylogger, I didn't know what a keylogger was. I got into programming and I came up with this idea. I'm like, what if I could record the keys that people typed? So I looked it up and there was a way to do it, and I'm like, oh my god, now all I gotta do is just send what they're typing to me and I got all their shit. So I learned about keyloggers and I programmed one, on stealing source code and stuff, but got one together and it was awesome. It was awesome. I started spreading it on websites and all these emails were coming in with passwords and their secret messages that they've been typing on Messenger and shit like that, and I'm just going crazy over it. I'm just like, this is possible, what? Check this out, we're doing this. And then, I start getting more into the hacking scene, away from keyloggers, more into the DDoS, and for that you need a crypter, because you got to get past the antivirus. So I got a lot of source code for crypters, and there's this big problem between 32-bit and 64-bit crypters and Windows 7 and operating systems, and the free ones never really were that great in scan time, runtime. But I got into trying to make my own with that, and I tried to make my own host booter, which was pretty fancy, because it sends packets of information from your victim and to your client, yourself, and or maybe it's the other way around, server and client. Maybe you're the server and they're the client. But we did the thing where we did free DNS, so we'd be so your bots would come to a website instead of you, and then it was just kind of like a middleman, keep your IP out of things. So yeah, and at the time I kept programming harder and harder stuff. I made this cool rat. A rat is like a thing where you can view their screen, you can turn on their webcam, you can record their keys, you can play with their mouse, change their background, search their files. It's just kind of like a big group thing to get into all kinds of places. And I started programming those, and kind of started programming. There was a lot of source code stealing and editing, but I was alright. I was alright for like a homegrown programmer making viruses. So during this time I learned a lot about computers. A lot of virus stuff too. So like how to get where everything starts up. You open your registry and where all those keys are. I learned that pretty quick, where all the startup places are. And how internet worked, because I was doing DDoS. and packets, ports, hiding your IP address, VPNs and stuff, setting up websites. I did that too. I don't know if you've ever heard of iStealer, but it's a program. It's just meant for stealing passwords. So, well, like if you save passwords in Firefox, Chrome, whatever, it just goes in, grabs the file, and then it's got its own decryption and decrypts it and gives you the passwords. But it searches for all saved passwords. So as soon as they open it, they really, even if they have an antivirus, you could just make it scan time, because as soon as it opens, everything is yours. All the passwords. You don't get stuff that you'd get with the wrap, but you just get the passwords. So, but you had to set up a website and work with like the host names and crap. That took me a while to get down. So I learned a lot about websites, a lot about how computers work, and both hardware and software. And next, I was with my friend on Xbox, and we kind of started getting into another thing. I mean, this always stayed, the like hacking thing. It kind of faded out, you know, when I turned. By the time I turned 18, I was just done with it. I was like, what else do I need? I never stole money. I was like trying to think if I actually have, and I don't think I have. But I had a lot of options too. A lot of options too. With iStealer, I mean, it would give me like PayPal accounts, you know? And I had like freaking a list of like 10,000 login, username, and passwords, and all kinds of shit. And like, I got a hold like eBay accounts and PayPal's and people's schools and all the websites they visited. But like, I had a lot of opportunities to steal money. I had a lot of opportunities to try to go more underground into the hacking scene. But I didn't. I just kind of, you know, a little more than skimmed the water. I went under the water, but I didn't go deep. I popped back up and continued on. So with my friend, we just had this idea of we just wanted to know how the brain worked. The thing that I think really got us into it, well, I mean, we always had this kind of thing with each other where we'd talk about our personalities, and we were really good friends, you know, so completely open with each other. There was nothing ever not there. So we like to, you know, talk like you would talk to yourself, where you would scan your thoughts, scan your feelings, and that was kind of interesting to us. Not kind of, really, but one of the turning points was when we thought of creativity. I remember one night, I was actually high. I just got into like weed. That was just introduced to me. I was 18 by now, and I thought of this thing, and I just like got out. I think I had a little whiteboard at the time, and I started writing down how creativity would work in the brain, how it wasn't actually 100% creative, you know, intelligence over artificial intelligence. It was a creative way of coming up with creative ideas, and it worked by an idea comes in, and the brain had everything kind of categorized, which I'll get into in a second, but like a database. And when it needs to make an idea, it will search the database in places that the ideas would kind of be good to go with each other. So it was coming up with random stuff. It was still testing whether or not this idea was gonna fit into the puzzle piece, to fit into real world application type thing. But the way it created the idea wasn't completely random. You know, you weren't coming up with a color for a fire truck and saying TV. Like, you weren't doing that. So it was a creative way to come up with creative ideas. And that like sparked it. And then I mean, there was many things that sparked it, but then, you know, we just started getting more into it. We were like, the thing we kept at the core of everything was programming a brain, because we both had good idea of hardware, so and software. So 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 we thought more about how the brain stores things. We came up with similarities where you know, square, that's also square, that's also square. Cardboard, which has many things to it, but then cardboard, 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 cardboard. And the brain just constantly compared information, like incoming information with new income, or stored information with the new incoming information to define everything and give everything a place to exist in the database. And we've seen how it couldn't be just, you know, like rows and or a table with rows, columns and rows. How storing things was much more complex. How emotions were not only in the database, but they were also a program. And how, kind of like how focus worked, how we kind of thought of it as like a progress bar, which was like all of your processing power, all of your focus on one thing, and then there was like mini progress bars, and then each one could expand, which would lower the other ones, but kind of way of working around things. And and I want to try to give you more detail than that, because we really spent about a year on this. So we paid really close attention to what the brain would do with some kind of information, like the light switch, how it's rectangle white, has screws, and and what your brain, not only where your brain would put that, but what other things would be put with that. So when I said screw, the first thing came to my mind was kind of the sexual act of screwing, and that kind of thing. When I said rectangle, it was subtle, but it reminded me of like kindergarten, like preschool type thing. So, which is a pretty complex thing, you know, from rectangle to preschool, which, I mean, there's that connection, you can see it there, but it's not like I thought of my TV, which is also a rectangle, or some other rectangle picture frame I've seen or something, and it was preschool. So it's a pretty complex way of categorizing things in the database that the brain has. And my friend, he brought up sentences one day, and that was pretty life-changing. He said, the structure of the sentence, and why one word came after another word, and why they would compare one thing to another thing in that sentence. if there was like two subjects, then why did one subject become the other subject? Like, what was in that person's mind that that walked them through to get them to this new destination? And like, say I did see a rectangle, and I told my friend, I'd be like, yeah, I looked at a rectangle, and then he'd sit there, and he would try to think, and he'd know a little bit about me, so it'd be a little bit easier, but he would come up with a few guesses of things that I first related that to, which was also, we also went into how the brain would search things, because the brain doesn't just okay, well, the searching thing was more like long-term memory versus short-term memory versus like right now. Well, not right now, but a little bit behind right now, like super fast type stuff, and how it would go backwards and it would search from the beginning to longer, but paid a lot of people watching type stuff, and we were both in school, so we watched people, watched the way they behave, then we'd come back and we'd talk about it, and compare that with ourselves. And I remember this one time, I used to write down sentences people said, like my dad said, we need to buy bananas, or maybe it was the green on the bananas makes for a better banana. Something banana. And I took this, and I wrote this on my whiteboard, and I just like went off, and like, kind of like the little bubbles and stuff, and trying to, like, what does this mean? Like, what else is in his brain? If this is there, what else is there? And I remember, like, I spent a lot of time on that, and uh, I remember I came up with some stuff, but I don't know, it was always, risky, I guess, to assume so many things. But I mean, we kind of had an educated assumptions on what was going on, and so my friend and I kind of started doing this, where we would take really good, at this time, we were pretty good at making educated guesses about what was going on in that person's mind, what else was a part of their life. If this was how they are now, then what else? And we always took it from that view of their brain is making similarities, it's categorizing things with emotions in there, and that type of thing. I really wish I could remember more details about this, because we really spent a lot of goddamn time. I have notebooks, not so much on my computer, because this was like before I started taking notes, but I do have a notebook, I believe, where I have some kind of that stuff. I was taking a philosophy class in college, and a lot of that was still going through my mind, the human brain part, and I used to listen to the teacher a little bit, but a lot of times I was sitting there and I was just writing and writing and writing all my ideas for how the brain was working. And we really did do a lot of work of trying to get it programmed. How would we program the brain? And that kind of stuff. But it was super complicated, because the brain, there's a lot to it, and there's a lot of stuff buzzing and going on in there. And the system is so complex, that even with the time we spent, it was still shooting for it. But so about that time, we kind of, after all this, really, it kind of settled down. Me and him, it wasn't that we, like, lost touch. It wasn't that we hated each other. It wasn't that we were doing different things in our life. It wasn't, there was, I don't know, I really don't have any reason for it, but we kind of just, we didn't end because it's still happening, but we just haven't talked. We haven't talked to each other, but it's so weird because it's like if you knew someone and then all of a sudden like you just completely disappeared from each other, but there was no closure and there was no reason to disappear. So now me and this friend, we're just kind of floating here. I don't know. Like maybe it will just happen and we'll get in touch again and just like spark back up. But it's kind of weird because we're just like apart for no reason. But so yeah, but during this time, like we started getting just more apart, which happened pretty quick. But I started different things started happening to me. I started seeing things that were quite magical, observing things that were quite magical to me. I got into chi, and I got into looking that up, and like the main center that goes through the body, or they call it the chakra system. And I got into this, and I just didn't know what the hell. I was reading this stuff on it, and I didn't know what the hell, and like what it was saying. You know, at this time I was a pretty logical, extremely logical, very good at not just common sense, but critical thinking of if A and B and shit, you know? Like, I had this, like, this very, like, I didn't take shit easily, you know? I needed to break that apart, and it needed to all click. So when I seen chakras, and I seen this stuff about, like, oh, your emotions are in this part of your body, and I didn't, I didn't, I don't know, I didn't take it anyway, I guess. I just started doing it, you know? As like, I didn't think about it too much, but I didn't take anything it said as like, as real, or as like, I guess certain. I guess I really didn't judge it in the end, but I was very ready to judge it. Like, I was ready to judge it as hard as I could, but I didn't judge it. So I just did it, you know? And I just, in first couple days, I'm just in the car, and I'm moving my focus just along the center of my body. And I'm going up and down, you know, and I can tell where my focus is. So I can feel my focus going up and down my body. And kind of like the like second time I did this, and the third time around there, which was pretty early on, I noticed just feeling different, feeling open, uh, but I just kept with it, and looked into it, and eventually I mean, it wasn't too long, a week or two, maybe just a week after starting this, I realized that when I'm focusing in a certain part of my body, that there was like a certain personality there, like a certain personality, certain like emotions, certain thing there. And then when I'd kind of move my focus to another spot, it'd be a little bit different, you know? I'm like, whoa, okay, I feel different, you know? I feel like I could take on the world differently now. Which, I mean, it might have happened so fast because I did have an acute sense of of observing my emotion and stuff, because all the brain stuff that we did, that's all I did is look at myself. How am I thinking? What am I thinking about? Why am I thinking those things? Why are those people thinking those things? So maybe it came on so early, it hit me so fast like that, because I was already used to observing more in detail of myself. So yeah, so I looked more into it, I was reading more into it, reading more and more and more, and I eventually came across meridians, which are, there's that center channel which you move your focus on, and then there's meridians, and they're just pathways through your body, and all it really is, or all I really took it for, was an exercise to continue on moving your focus, sharpening your focus, because there's kind of like more focused on one point and then less focused on one point. Like you can see something, be kind of focused around, or you can see it, only be focused on that. So I took it as, okay, so I'm going to keep using my focus, and I'm going to start moving my focus through my arms instead of just this channel in my legs, and very specifically like inside in the bones and in these meridians. And so I started doing this, and more and more of that stuff, like more and more stuff coming up of self-realization, of more of discovering who I am, but what I thought about, it seemed to be like now I was much more in my head with like buzzing, and it was just like I couldn't stop it, and it was like I was arguing with myself, and I remember like these times where like eventually after all the buzzing kind of settled down, there was just like two sides. It was like this point of view and this point of view, and in my head there'd just be clashing and clashing and clashing, and I'm trying to figure out like which one's right, and I'm just like so emotionally stressed because of all this clashing of views going on inside of me, and I can't figure things out, and then there would be times where it'd get really tough. Like, it went from, like, in the beginning I was, like, buzzing, and I was just, like, there was, like, almost too much about me, about myself, almost too many thoughts that I was having, and, like, not even just thoughts that I was having, but just, like, the feeling of thinking without actually knowing what your thoughts are. And then there was this big, like, it just kind of came to the, what is that? The climax, and then it was just like, and then I remember I just like woke up one day after I was like crying in the shower, like I was just emotionally just fucked, and I came out of the shower and I was like, I'm done with this, you know, like these 2 points of views, they're just not, and I can't take it anymore. And then I woke up the next day, and like all of a sudden everything was quiet, and I was like, it's been resolved, you know, like, it's been resolved, thank God, because, like, I was fucking freaking out, and, like, I couldn't take it. So, and I kept doing this with the meridians. After that, I was like, whew, you know, I took a breather, and, it might have took me a little bit to get back into it, but I started going, and, I started to back up again, moving my focus through my body, and then I'd kind of have like another period of that where like I'd just kind of go crazy, don't know how to handle life, almost about to give up, fucking kill myself, and then kind of work up into a climax, and then kind of just like kind of just release it with a big powerful fucking yell, or a nice soft cuddling up with yourself, or just, you know, whatever it was to get it out of there. That, after like a few of these, I realized realized, one, like moving my focus through my body was actually bringing up like shit that I was at that time I probably would have called it like subconsciously thinking about, because it was those things where the thoughts are happening but you don't know, you don't hear the thoughts, you don't you're not like thinking the thoughts are just buzzing, it just feels like buzzing really. And I realized that I was kind of doing this, like flopping through this, and it took me fighting. It wasn't like I could just move my focus through my body and then just experience that and then kind of be done with it. Although I do think that would be something people could do, but like for me, it was like it took a lot of will to carry on. It was like, do I want to keep going down this path? Um, and it was like a yes and no, depending on the time that I asked myself. After the releases, after I'd worked it out and like resolved with myself, that I was like, whoa, I feel lighter, I feel clear, I feel so much more calm and ready. And yeah, so I realized, or I just kind of jumped to the conclusion that what I was doing with moving my focus through the body was searching myself, searching my body, searching my past, my memories, my future, my desires, my everything, looking within myself, kind of literally. I mean, by moving the focus within myself, I was seeing within myself, which causes a lot of disturbance. Um, I guess there's a bit of disturbance going on, or there was a bit of disturbance, or there probably still is a bit of disturbance going on within me. But working that out and feeling more um, more clear and ready. So that was the meridians. Those were just inside the body. And around this time, oh shit, I mean, it might have been a little bit before this time, when those periods when I was going crazy, I thought back to the brain thing, because I stuck with that brain thing, because I was a very, like, the brain is the whole body, the brain is everything. And I tried to figure out like these new experiences that were happening to me, like there'd be times where I'd be like, I'd have, those dreams where you wake up and they mean a whole lot of stuff, or you wake up and then during the day it just like hits you and it's like, oh my god, that meant so much stuff. Or there'd be times where like, not just when I was moving my focus through my body, but just times when like flashes of memories and like shit like that like came up, um and it was like, and with all the buzzing that was going on, and I couldn't connect it. I couldn't connect my new experiences with the brain and with my old way of thinking, and that was really troublesome. I came to this point where like I kind of generalized logic here, but came to this point where like I didn't know, or like thinking about things like one by one, or thinking about things like really logically how I had thought about them, it was either I had to think of the brain as I had to stick with my old like brain, this way of thinking and this way of thinking about things. So it was more than just that way of thinking. It was that way of expressing myself and everything around me. So it was like that came to a point, and then there was this new point that I was coming to, where I had like gone through like all the jittery shit, and and now it was very kind of like in the shower when those two ideas had clashed and it had just like dropped me. Now it was much it was like, it was the same thing, but a little bit different, you know, a little more, different things clashing. This time I'd say they were much bigger. There were much bigger parts of my life that were clashing. But um, these two were clashing, and I had to just decide. I had to just pick one. But I couldn't pick one, you know. And like, I came to that point where I just collapsed and I gave up. Like I was like, fuck it. I am gonna do, and what I do is what I'm gonna be. type thinking. And and man, dude, I remember during these times I used to have like freak out attacks, man. Like, we went to this gas station once, and I was in the car and I'm like freaking out, and I'm not telling anyone, but I'm just like ready to I'm like seriously contemplating jumping out of the car. Like, I mean, to me, like, when I think back, I'm like, I don't think I ever would have, but like, I just wanted to. I just wanted to fucking like jump out of the car while we were moving, or just slam my head against windows, or like just something. And I remember we stopped at the gas station. I got out of the car and I ran. I just ran. My family was just like, what is he doing? And I just ran all the way to this fence as fast as I can. Like, if I didn't run as fast as I can, I wouldn't have made it, like, home. I wouldn't have made it the car ride home. I just had to go, and I had to go all out. I ran all the way to this fence. It was kind of far away. And then I ran all the way back. And they're like, what are you doing? And like, I kind of just like played it off like I had a lot of energy and I was just excited, but I didn't want to tell them that it was because I was so fucking like hectic, so like feeling like I'm crazy and feeling like too many, not too many things, but like it was like an emotion, but I can't really explain the emotion. It was like how if you mix all the colors, they turn to black, like they'll just come out to black. It was like mixing all the emotions coming out to like blah, like a maniac blah. Like fucking spazzing out blah. So, but yeah, so around that time I just dropped all my like old thinking type things, you know, like I had that huge debate again with the conflicting ideas, and I just dropped them and embraced just the kind of new colorful lightness, existence that I had going on. After that, I I oh gosh. After that, it just I mean, I don't, I don't know if things got easier or things got a whole lot tougher. I still like smoking weed every now and then, mainly with my brother at night, and that was cool, you know, because the expanded mind, increased creativity. They say hyper priming, but now I think much differently of what hyper priming nerves and what the brain is. But hyper priming. And so a couple nights with just me and him, I would feel like I took on his personality. Still, I was very observant of myself. I'd feel like I took on his personality, and when we were talking, I felt like like I could be his personality talking back to him, which made for like awesome conversations, like hilarious conversations, mostly because when you're you know, when you're in the car and you're able to just sing to yourself and you can just like blow up with excitement and joy. It was like that, but with him, and it was more than just being high, although that like helped, but it was me me feeling like I had this different personality. And a couple times I remember I could feel like his thoughts, not exactly his thoughts, like, because I couldn't be sure that they were his thoughts, but like when he would think about something, I felt like I was thinking about it. And then when he would like shift his focus, even without changing his eyes and focus on me, I could feel that. And I was like, okay, this is weird, you know, I'm feeling these things, and I seem to be adapting to his personality, which, I mean, it's kind of natural, but the extreme way it was happening was just too standing out to me. So I had to look closer. So a couple nights went by, I think, and it was a lot of this stuff where it was just like, that was weird, that was weird. So one night, I just completely out of the blue, I'm like, Nathan, see if you can read my thoughts. And he didn't even think anything of it. He just sat there, and I like got in front of him, and we're just kind of like face to face. And I don't know if we closed our eyes. I think we closed our eyes, but and then all of a sudden, I say in my head, Nathan, can you hear me? And then I get this response. It was like, yeah. And then there was kind of this confusion area where the next response was like, whoa, and how is this happening, which was smaller. It was more of a, like, we tried talking back, we tried to continue the conversation more than just bink, bink, you know, hello, hello. We tried to continue the conversation, but the third part of the conversation was not clear. It was very muddied, but it seemed to come in as like a kind of response of like, you're hearing me in your head type response, but mixed in with a lot of things, so it was muddy. And that, I looked at him, and he looked at me, and I'm like, and you know, he's giving me, and that was that. That was like that night, and then I remember that, you know, I wasn't gonna forget that happened. So the next day, no, it might have been a couple days. It might have been like 3 or 4 days. My cousin came over, and I looked it up on that because I told him about it, and he's like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I looked it up on Google. I typed in "friends hearing friends' thoughts," and there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of people that are like, "Yeah, seem to hear what my friend's thinking," and that type of stuff. And I found this one thing, this like exercise for telepathy. It was like, get a coin, flip it, don't let them see your face, just completely, you know, hide yourself, and then picture the coin in your head, and then see if they can guess it. And I tell him about this, and he's like, okay, let's try it. So I get a quarter, and I flip the quarter, and it's me first, and I flip the quarter, and it lands, and I catch it, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, okay, and I imagine in my head the best I can, and then he's like, he tells me it, and I'm like, yeah, okay, you know, like, there's a 50-50, and, you know, we got a lot to go. You know, I'm already excited, but I'm like, we got a lot to go, you know, because I'm still pretty critical thinking, even though this is really damaging my way of thinking. So I do it again, look at it, and I picture it, and he tells me, and I'm like, flip it again, you know. I'm like, okay, and he tells me, and I flip it again, and he tells me, and I look at him, and this is like 4 times in a row now.
They're here, so just so if they power you out, you'll know.
Oh, that's alright. So he tells me for the 4th time, and so by this time I'm a little more like giddy, and I'm like excited. So I take the quarter and I'm like, what if he's seeing in my face what it is or some kind of thing. So I grab a blanket and I put this blanket up and I flip the quarter and I look at it, I picture it, and he can't see me or anything, and he says it, and I'm like, and I'm like getting goosebumps. I'm like pretty excited at this point. I'm like really excited actually, and I do it like I think 3 more times behind the blanket, and he guesses it right every time. And then I turn around, I look at him, and he tells me that he feels something like hitting him in the forehead. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, do it again. And I like flipped it and I did this. And then he's like, he told me, and he's like, I feel it hitting me in the head, and then it just comes to me. And I'm like, okay, let's switch roles. And he takes a quarter and he flips it and he does it. And I got it wrong a couple times, but I don't think I got it wrong in the beginning. I think I got it right for a while. Only like 5 or 6 times, but I got it right in the beginning, and I was like, I knew right away. As soon as he said the thing about the hit in the head, and he flipped the quarter, and he pictured it, it was just like, dink, and I was like, whoa. And then I told him, and he did it again, and it was like, dink, whoa, and I could feel it, and got it right 5 or 6 times, and then I got it wrong. And I think I got it wrong because I was just like excited. At this point, I was like really buying into it, so I didn't really need to think about anything else. And I think all that confusion got in my way of being clear thought and seeing what it is. So after that, we were like, okay. And I wanted to really look into the statistics, because I knew there was a 50-50 chance. I knew that, things like this could be possible with just guessing, even though, the feeling and the way it was happening from my position, there was just like, I was really, really locked into wow. But, I was still like, okay. So we woke up the next day, and we were like, let's go get a shake, I believe it was. And as we're driving, I'm like, okay, let's try it again. We take out the quarter and we do it. And we're getting it right. It's mostly him being the receiver. I was never really good at like picking it up. Like I was doing it and getting like good odds, but he was like excellent at like reading it. And he was getting it right. He'd get it right like 7 times in a row and then wrong once. And then 7 times in a row and then wrong once. 5 times in a row and then wrong once. And which was still spectacular. It was still like, okay. And again, from our position, it was very much the wow, because it was just like you could tell when they had the answer and when they respond. It was like you could almost tell how it was going to work before it actually worked. You could tell if you were doing a good job or not, and you could tell when it went through. You could like tell when there was this connection, like this like almost like a like a spark to a neuron or something. You could tell that was there. So, but still I had to go on odds. Like still I was still doing that, even though I was really buying into it. So we tried it with the different thing in the car. We got shapes. We're like, okay, square, circle, triangle. We did that, and because that got us more, 3 instead of 2, and we got really good odds. It seemed to be a little bit harder than the heads and tails, but we got really good odds, and things were still clicking, and we were noticing those clickings and stuff like that. So we got home, and we got out the quarter again, and I calculated the odds. I was like, JJ, if we can get this right, I think it was like 15 times in a row, then the odds were like 1 in, I don't know if it was like 700, no, I think it was like 1 in something thousand, maybe? I don't know. I was like, if we get this 15 times in a row, that's ridiculous, like that's insane. So we went for it, and I think we got 14 times in a row. We didn't reach the 15, we got like one before it. And I think we were so excited that we were gonna get there that we messed up. But still, it was like, oh, okay, you know, this is crazy. So, so then later that night, we were like, okay, let's try this again with something else. So we took game cases, Xbox games. I have this book I bought at a gas station, Greatest Goofiest Jokes. These are like hilarious. Like watch, I'll just open it up to a random one. What do you call a boy who likes to cook? Stew. Knock knock, who's there? Abby. Abby who? Abby home for dinner? Abby home for dinner? How do you clean a chef? Wash him with soup and water. So we had like Xbox cases like this. We had 3 of them, and we got really different ones. It was like Gears of War, Halo, and whatever other game. And we'd imagine the cases. I think we had 4 of them. I think we always had 4 of them. Always had 4. I feel like we might have had 3 for like the first couple times we tried this, but then we threw in another game. So anyways, we laid the game down. And this was with my brother too, because he was like in on this and he wanted to do this. So laid him down, and then the person that would be sending would choose one, and we'd be like, okay, we'd look at them, got one. And then we'd close it, we'd visualize it the best we can. And then the 2 would say what they guessed it was, or yeah, so, and we'd get it right, one of us would get it wrong, one of us would be on a roll 5 or 6 times, and then this is when we started noticing even more things, not mathematical, but experiential. When I did this, I chose a game and I pictured it, and when I was imagining it, it was like I filled it in from the corner and I started working the details up. And then JJ, my cousin, he'd be like, yeah, I seen it. It was Gears of War. It started from the corner and it was like almost like pixels filling in. And I was like, whoa, that's how I was imagining it. Exactly. That's how the image was filling in my mind. And he was like, yeah, that's how I seen it. And I was like, well, okay. And then another time, this was a Gears of War one again, but also with the Halo, but there's a chainsaw, and he holds the chainsaw, and I imagined the chainsaw first. That was the first vivid thing, and then the guy kind of like faded in, increasing vividness behind his chainsaw. And JJ was like, Gears of War? He's like, I seen the chainsaw first, and then the guy. And he's explaining the picture forming in his head the same way that it was forming in my head when I was imagining it, you know? I was the sender. And that was like bizarre, you know? That was like, wow, like, I don't have, I don't have the, to back that with, but it was amazing, and that was happening was cool, and the odds of us hitting it were like so high that it was you know, nothing I could like have too much mathematics behind it, but the experience of it was very awe-grounding, awe-struck. So one experience that I left out, this didn't happen on purpose, but it's kind of cool that I'm telling this experience last, because this was the first experience. This was my first, no, actually, the first experience with this like sensing of other people's thoughts, this like sensing of their focus, was with my brother. But then when my cousin came over, before we did the coin thing, it might have been the night we did the coin thing. We might have did the coin thing earlier and then later that night. No, I'm pretty sure it was before the coin thing. So this was like my second experience. We were both high. And we were in my room, and I just asked him, I was like, JJ, you want to meditate? And he's never meditated, and I've never meditated, really. Like, I've, like, blanked my mind, because I'd been doing the focus thing, so I'd been moving my focus around, but I'd never meditated. So, it's like, JJ, you want to meditate? And he was just like, we just started it up. There wasn't even an answer. It was like we started doing it. Turned off all the lights, and it was pitch black. And he sits down, closes his eyes. I sit down and close my eyes, and I'm not thinking a thing. I was just going to this super blank state, and then all of a sudden, I see this image in front of my eyes, very vivid. I don't know if you've ever had a lucid dream or just a dream that's you've been more aware of that seems like it's written on the surface of your eyelids. Lucid dreams are very like on the surface of your eyelids, whereas like normal dreams are very like deep. So this was a very surface visual dream, lucid dream. Like I seen a waterfall, and I seen it coming down. I went through the waterfall, and I was on the other side, and I turned back around, and I see it in front of me. And then I'm like I guess levitating at this point. I was more just the camera moving than actually thinking about anything that was going on, like kind of like a normal dream. So I came out of the waterfall, and I looked down, and there was kind of a little swim hole type thing, and it was very deep, and I was looking down, and then I went up, and I started just going up, 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 and I'm really far away from the waterfall, and then all of a sudden I'm like looking at the earth, still in like atmosphere, and then all of a sudden I'm in space, I'm out of the atmosphere, and I'm looking at the earth, and it's really far away, and then all of a sudden I'm just like, I go like head first, and just dives, like my arms down, I'm like, and I'm just like, and I come in. One of the really vivid things, because the most of this visual, this like dream, this like dream that was happening, was very just visual, just seeing. But these clouds, as I broke through like the clouds, it was like